Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our episode of Pivot in Progress today. I'm your host, Arjun, and I will be talking about one of the most fundamental topics that we get queries around. And one of the first things that we help a lot of our clients at Pivot on, which is how do you discover the right career path for yourself, especially when you are at a mid career level, not necessarily somebody who's a fresher or a student, because there's a lot of support, there's a lot of material already for people at that level, at an early career level. But for folks who are at the mid career stage, we typically don't see a lot of either relevant material which is actually personalized to you and your background and your goals, or we typically see complete lack of support system in terms of whether it's coaching, whether it's platforms that can help you make that decision that, hey, I've been doing xyz type of role. I either don't enjoy it that much, or maybe I do enjoy it, but I'm not sure, if that's a sustainable role because the market requirements are shifting very fast. So I need to realign myself to the right kind of opportunities going forward, whether it's from a functional perspective or from a industry perspective. So these are the type of problem statements that we deal with day in day out. And again, the core of it is, how do I ensure that I have clarity on the right career path, meaning the right role, the right industries, the right type of companies, and profile positioning in the market? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And this is again specific for mid-career professionals. So anybody who has at least, I would say, 4 or 5 years experience or more would probably find this session helpful. We are going to not just discuss theory, because there's a lot of LinkedIn gurus and a lot of career advisors out there, career coaches out there, who will share many theories. They will share certain frameworks perhaps that have been invented long time ago, may not necessarily be suitable for today's rapidly evolving job market. We have tried to come up with a system which gives you structure, which gives you ability to personalize that framework, and gives you clarity and confidence that you're going in the right direction, right? So that's the framework that we are going to talk about today. It's actually part of our website, which in a few minutes I will show it to you. I'll do a walkthrough, and you will also see that it's very simple, because end of the day you don't want to get mired into doing some very complex and time consuming kind of exercises which suck up more and more time. So the things that we're going to discuss today, at most they will take somewhere between 20-30 minutes to maximum about an hour, depending on how much clarity you need, right? So yeah, I think that's what we're going to talk about. And one of the other things that I want to share just before we get into that is, clarity on your target role and industries is something that is considered like a subjective matter. You can't always be like 100% factually accurate about clarity, right? It's kind of like, for example, having clarity on the rest of your life, what you're going to do next. You have an idea, but you can't be 100% sure that your life is actually going to play out the way you're expecting it. Today there's so many exogenous external factors that would impact it. So the goal is not to necessarily come up with something that you say, what, I have figured out the rest of my career. That is probably a fool's errand. I think nobody can predict with that level of certainty what we are going to do for the next, let's say 20-30 years or so. But what we can do is have a framework which allows us to map out at least the next steps in our career based on the current environment, and then gives us a repeatable framework for the future, so that when market conditions change or our interests and our goals change in the future, then we have something that we can rely on and find the information and the clarity to be able to make that new decision once again. So that's the goal of this entire exercise, and I hope people can understand that. Yeah, with that said, I think we can dive right into the platform which will help us come up with the right frameworks to evaluate the best fit roles, industries, and companies. So let me share that with you. Just give me a second. Okay, so I believe my screen is visible now, and you can see um, the website that I have. I'm just trying to see where we can. Okay, let's see which setting is best. Yeah, I think this should work. All right, great. So this is our website, which is mypivot.work, and you can go to Pivot, sign up. It'll take half a minute to sign up for free. You don't have to pay anything to try it out. And then once you have signed up, this is the homepage that you would land on. So just to give you a rough idea of what all is over here, so we typically provide four offerings that you can see on the left. There's a career planner, which helps you map out your entire transition and break it down into a stepwise process. So if you're going from, let's say, job A to job B, or even shifting your domain or industry, you would be able to really navigate it in a end-to-end manner using this planner. This is the one that I'm going to be talking about today, where we'll cover how this particular tool helps you get more clarity on the next steps in your career. Then you have industry mentors in case you're looking for feedback from people who are working in your target role, and the kind of roles that you are considering, and you're, let's say, not 100% sure which one to pursue. We have people from across different domains, generally who are screened and vetted. They have at least 10 plus years experience, sometimes even up to 30 years experience, and they have a lot of experience helping other professionals, mid-career professionals, uh, identify the best fit opportunities for them based on a holistic set of factors. So you can also schedule sessions with industry mentors if you'd like. When you click on it, these are all the type of mentors that you'll see. Then we have courses and boot camps. These are this is more like a marketplace of courses that we have combined from all across the internet. So you will see obviously the typical ones like Udemy, but you'll also, if you scroll down, you'll see like a lot of specific courses in tech and non-tech um, areas and across different domains. So all you have to do is go to the top and choose one of these domains that is applicable to you, and you will figure out the best fit courses at this stage. Then you have job openings. So we have our own in-house job board that we call the smart board. And what the smart board really does is give you the ability to not just find the right kind of jobs, but adds a lot more value in ensuring that you land those jobs. Because today, finding jobs is not the problem. The problem is actually converting your application into interview callbacks or interviews into more offers. So there are a bunch of features that we have spent years and years fine tuning and helping our clients with. For example, coming up with the job match score by uploading your resume, and it helps you figure out whether these are the right fit roles or not for you. Then at the same time, you have these three features on the top. So AI resume builder will help you basically create a new resume. It will also help you customize it for each application or each JD that you are trying to align it with. Referrals is one of the biggest game changers that we have built for our clients, wherein you can now get referrals from people who are in Pivot's community. You can also get referrals from people directly in your LinkedIn network who are the best fit and most likely to refer you, and the broader community, which is outside of Pivot's community as well as your community. So you'll see all of those folks show up over here. Um, and then finally, you have the jobs tracker. This one, you can add new jobs as and when you're applying to them by clicking on add new job. And you will see that you can add the company, you can add the URL for the JD, you can add the title, for example, marketing manager, and so forth. So this will just help you stay up to date with regard to your job applications and follow up at the right time and making sure you're understanding where you're getting more traction versus not. So these are all the different features that we have. Now, let's come to the career planner. So the career planner, as I explained earlier, is something where you can map out your entire transition from job A to job B in a very end-to-end manner, in a very structured and personalized manner. So what you're looking at here is, on the left are the 5 modules that break down your transition into a stepwise process. There is a progress bar that also shows you how far you've come along, right? And each module has a specific purpose or a goal to be achieved, meaning it will help you further advance towards your target role if you complete that particular module, right? So as an example, the first module is explore. The goal for this module is to help you understand what is out there and what really aligns with your current priorities and goals. So basically, what are the best fit roles, companies, and industries that you should be targeting? That's the goal for this particular module. So in essence, this is the clarity framework that we were talking about, right? So we'll spend some time going through this entire framework today. You will, by the end of it, have a very good understanding of the key building blocks of getting clarity in your career, right? And then there are a bunch of other modules which we'll cover in later sessions. All of these help, I would say, maximize your chances in the current job market, especially, I would say networking and how you prepare your job applications and interviews. I think these two are extremely, extremely critical. The others are to learn is all about skills, and apply is all about the job search strategy as well. And that can be a make or break for many, many people too. But we typically see that the most correlation with job search success today depends on how clear you are around your path and your positioning, how you leverage your network and amplify your network to connect with the right people, and how you prepare your job applications to stand out in the market, and how do you prepare your profile narrative, meaning the interview pitch that you're going to have, to stand out from other hundreds of candidates who are also applying to that role, right? So that's all the context here. Now let's get started. So in explore module, the first exercise, as you can see, is get started. When you click on that, it will show you this video, which gives you a very high level overview of what this particular module entails. You can watch this video in your own time, but then you move to the next item. Now, once you move to this, you will see the first exercise is called introspection interests, right? When you actually hover on the career planner on the left over here, you'll notice that there are in fact 3 different types of introspection exercises, which are the starting point of the explore module, or the clarity framework that we have. So why do we start with this? The reason we start with this is because before you can start looking at specific roles or industries that are the best fit for you, we want your unfiltered, your unbiased view into things that you enjoy working on the most, things that you're adept at, or you believe you excel at the most, and things that are the biggest motivation for you at this stage in your career. So that's your priorities. That's how we define these 3, right? Interest is things that you like working on, or you enjoy and spend most of your time doing. Skills, things that you are adept at. And priorities, things that biggest motivator for you to consider a change. Now let's talk about the actual exercise. So the first one, again, being introspection interests. So here what you will see is, at the time of onboarding to a platform, you'll be asked what your current role is, and based on that role, there will be certain auto recommendations that pop up over here, which showcase the type of interest that a person typically in that role might have. Now, you don't necessarily have to select all of those. You can edit them out by using this edit icon, or you can remove it if you don't think it's an interest. Because see, you might be doing something currently which you're not interested in, right? Which does not align with things that you actually enjoy working on, so you can remove that as well. But typically, we have seen that out of the ones that are recommended, at least a few would reflect your interest. And then you can also add new interests over here by either selecting the ones which are unselected, or entering completely new interests which are not there at all. So like, for example, let's say I have an interest in coaching, right? So I can just add that over here, right? I'll delete it for now. But yeah, these are the kind of interests that you want to add. One note on interest: so we allow you to select up to 10. But typically we have seen, even if you select up to 5 or 6, that's a good starting point. You really don't want to get overwhelmed by having 10 different interests. We've given 10 for extreme scenarios in case you genuinely have deep interest in 10 areas. Otherwise, if you're just curious about something but you have not really explored it at all, you have zero idea about that particular role, that industry, then try to avoid putting it, because in the current job market, if you put something which is very surface level understanding for you, meaning you have not done any project, you have not done any educational course, you don't have obviously mainstream work experience in that area, all you have is maybe high level Wikipedia research that you have done, or maybe you've spoken to somebody once about that career in a passing manner, that doesn't really count as an interest. That is curiosity. And while curiosity is a good trait in general, in the current job market, we do not want you to focus on too many areas of curiosity. We want you to focus on areas of interest where you have educational background or mainstream work ex, or at least you have done a small project to understand what that subject matter is really about. So make sure that you're focusing only on those areas, right, and avoiding any major curiosity areas where you don't have practical exposure. That's pretty much it. That's all you're doing over here. You can, by the way, also see more interests if you like, and you can check out the pro tip section on the right in case you're looking for more insights on how to select the right interests. Then you go to the next exercise. Now, this one is focused on skills, right? So, interest was all about areas that you enjoy spending most of your time on, and skills is all about where do you stand out versus other people in the job market for that particular role or type of interest areas that we have discussed in the prior exercise. So, typically, it works the same exact way that the prior exercise worked, meaning you will see certain auto recommendations from us depending on the type of role you have chosen at the time of onboarding. You will be able to modify them, remove them, and add new ones. So that remains the same. What's different here is how do you actually identify your areas of skill? So think about the times that you have gotten positive feedback from your manager or from your clients or maybe even your peers. That's what you want to focus on over here. If you don't have a, let's say, very long term career, maybe you have only like 2 or 3 years of work experience so far, maybe you have not received a lot of compliments, a lot of feedback. In that case, think about which are the areas which you have made the most significant tangible impact in. Where do you have demonstrable proof of work and specific outcomes that you have achieved? So those achievements, depending on the degree of how bright that achievement is, how unique that achievement is in your industry, talk about your skills in that way. For example, for a marketer, let's say you have received a lot of positive feedback around your creative campaigns, definitely talk about that. If you have not received feedback on that but you have been able to create or contribute to a campaign then drove a lot of signups or a lot of impressions to the company website, then you can still write it down even if you don't have feedback. If you don't have feedback, you don't have any outcomes to showcase, the only other factor to then depend on is, hey, how much time have I spent working in this particular area? Have I actually delivered a lot of projects which may not have always worked out for the company or the client that you're working with, but you still have a good understanding of that particular project and how different aspects are applied. So you can, I would say, you can write down about any areas where you've spent significant time as well, if you don't have a lot of positive feedback, a lot of great achievements in the market right now. That's how you cover these. Typically 5 to 6 skills are good enough, because again, we are not trying to have every single skill that you might bring to the table, but rather the ones that differentiate you from the peers and other candidates in the job market. So 5 to 6 is a good range. If you feel like I am really strong on many areas, and that amounts to up to 10, you can put that as well. Then we move to the next exercise here, which is introspection priorities. Now, this is one of the most underrated parts of getting clarity on the next best role for yourself. A lot of times people only think about, what is trending in the job market, and what kind of roles have I already worked in. So what are my current areas of interest or skills? But many people don't think about, hey, what am I trying to optimize for at this stage in my career? What do I value the most in terms of what I want from my career, right? And these priorities, by the way, they shift. They don't remain the same. Like, for example, in your 20s, you might prioritize growth, learning, to some extent pay, because you're trying to recover, education costs and those kind of things. When you're in your 30s, perhaps, let's say you're starting a family, or you have spent already a decade, so you're a little burnt out and you want more work life balance, or you want, more flexibility in the role that you have. 40s will be a different kind of priorities, and 50s. And this is not just segmented based on age or work experience. It could be any factor really that makes you think, what are my current priorities and how are they different from what I used to prioritize previously in my career. So you will see a list of the most common priorities that we hear from people that we have worked with. So approximately 10,000 plus people who have worked with us. Based on that, we have shown these priorities over here. Now you can select them. Like, for example, for many people in the tech world right now, job security is a really important priority because of the amount of instability that's been created through layoffs and business restructuring, right? So you want to be able to select something that is top of mind for you. If you think it is the number one priority, you can move that up all the way to one as well, right? And that way it's right here. So you can position and rank your priorities. Ideally, you don't want to select more than 4 or 5, like we've been discussing over the last couple of exercises as well. This will also inform your decision making when we are finalizing our target role, whether it aligns with the priorities that we have in mind, not just the skills and interests, but with our key priorities. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, just one quick example there is, for example, a lot of times high pay can conflict with work life balance. Like if you are in consulting, for example, you'll know that a lot of the opportunities are high paying but don't have a great work life balance, right? If you are, for example, in an industry which is creating a big social impact but may not have very high pay, because typically non-profit or ESG or impact related companies, they don't have very significant lucrative paying opportunity. So those are the type of trade-offs that we are going to be dealing with when we are making career decisions. So it's good that we think about this right off the bat rather than at the last minute and get confused which one is the best opportunity for us, right? That's pretty much it over here. Once you're done with this, you save it, you go to the next exercise. Now, this is fairly straightforward. Whatever you have chosen in the prior exercises would be shown over here. You can, look at it in one screenshot and really digest and see, have I captured the right interest, skills, and priorities? Is there something that I missed that I should go back and edit? Is there something which I added by mistake? It's not really an interest. I was, being a little too aggressive or being a little too ambitious in the thinking that I had, because you will see the skills also over here, right? And you will see, okay, I put down an interest where I don't really have any skill whatsoever, any exposure whatsoever, even like a side project. So then you want to probably rethink whether you want to keep that or you want to edit it out. So this is just kind of a evaluation of everything you've done so far. And after that, we move to the next exercise where we start to now brainstorm the different type of roles that might be worth considering for you, right? So this is called the relevant roles exercise over here. And the goal is not to finalize the primary target role here. The goal is to, like I said, brainstorm different type of career options that might be worth considering for you. And it's based on everything that you have shared with us so far, meaning your introspection exercises and interests, skills, and priorities. But it also looks into the kind of job market trends that we are currently seeing in the market. What are the hiring activity, hiring requirements from a skill criteria perspective are we seeing in the market? What are the future prospects of different type of opportunities for the next 3 to 5 years? So we look into both introspection related parameters that you have shared with us and the job market parameters that in the back end our systems are handling. And so based on this, we come up with the kind of roles that are worth considering. So typically there are two ways to come up with this. One is the approach, which is the more common one that we typically see for people who are just starting to try out our program. Therein, we have an algorithm based approach to come up with the roles on the left over here. So these roles are determined based on an algorithm that we have fine tuned over the years to come up with the best opportunities related to everything in introspection and current job market trends. So you'll see those populated over here. The other thing you can do is human-led approach. So one is algorithm-based, the other is human-led. Human-led is equally important. In the free plan, we won't be like our team would not be working with you on this, but you can add any roles or any functions that you think are worth considering, in addition to the ones that are shown on the left, right? So you can just note them down here by entering the role, and once you enter it, you will see that for each of the roles, you can read more about it, right? I won't click on it right now, but if you are, let's say, confused about any of the job that has been shared on the left, meaning you don't know the exact responsibilities or you don't know what the pay levels are, you can just click on read more and it will help you understand what that role actually does, right? Um, and you can decide whether you want to, for example, the ones that you have added, at least you can decide, okay, I thought this role was something else. So you can edit it out or you can delete it as well. So this is the page where you are broadly casting a net and seeing which of the roles are worth considering. Now, once this is done, then we move to the next exercise, which is personality assessment. Now, so far, whatever we have been discussing is what we call our primary framework of clarity. Personality assessment is more of a secondary framework of clarity. The reason it's secondary is because it's something that we do only to validate whatever we have seen so far in prior exercises, meaning, did we miss out any career options that were worth considering? What are your core personality traits, and do they align broadly, at least, with the type of roles that we have been thinking about so far in prior exercises, right? That's the goal for this personality test. So what you have to do is very simple. We have this big five personality test, which is the most popular and scientifically validated psychometric model that's used across the world today to help people make career decisions, right? So you would click on the start test button. Once you click on it, you will be asked a bunch of questions about your likes and dislikes from a work perspective. They're very simple to answer because all you have to do is choose from agree, disagree, or neutral. And then once you have selected an option, I guess it'll take about 10 minutes or so to complete the entire questionnaire. And after that, you will get a free personality test report wherein you will be able to see what are the core personality traits that you bring to the table, and you will also be able to see up to 4 or 5 career recommendations that are aligned with your personality traits. So you will be able to see the report over here, and you'll be able to see the options both in the report as well as the ones that are suggested here, right? So this is again more food for thought, just to see, hey, my personality is recommending that I should be focused on these type of roles. Now, the thing with personality is not looking at your prior experience or your future goals. So all the recommendations that are here, you really have to apply your judgment to see, do I want to actually pursue them, or is it just about personality, nothing else? So if it is just regarding your personality and nothing else, meaning it does not align with your background or future goals, ignore. But if you feel that there is a possibility that it's not just about alignment with my personality, but actually aligns with the type of roles that I'm considering as well, then you definitely want to take it into account, and you can add it to the list of shortlisted roles that we will discuss in the next exercise. So just one final thing on this is, you're using personality test as a validation check, as a secondary framework, not as your primary, and hence you don't need to select all of the roles that are recommended over here. These are just more like your food for thought to say, are we on the right track? Did we miss any roles that are worth considering? Then we move on to the next exercise. Now, this is something that is primarily available to our paid users, meaning people who have paid for certain bundle plans, which are like job search plans or career change plans. So if you have signed up for one of them, you would be able to schedule a session with one of our team members who is a pivot advisor, and you will be able to discuss everything that you have filled out so far in the planner. You'll be able to get their feedback. These folks are some of the most experienced people in the field from a job search and career transition perspective. They have worked with at least 100 people, sometimes even up to 500 people. So they understand the broad job market trends. They understand, how clarity works for people at different junctures of the career, and they're able to provide more relevant feedback and context to you before you start executing your transition plan, right? So if you'd like, you can upgrade from a free plan to one of the paid plans and schedule call with Pivot Advisor. There are many other things that are included in the paid plans. You can check it out on our pricing section on the website. But this is one of the key things, that you'll get a dedicated Pivot Advisor helping you out every step of the way. So, with that said, you can go to the next exercise if you don't have a paid plan. And what you can do here is, you will see that firstly, this exercise is called shortlist roles. So, you will see that all of the roles that came out in the prior exercises, so the relevant roles exercise and personality assessment, all of those roles will be shown over here, right? And now it's up to us which roles we shortlist. Typically, you can shortlist up to four, but I think with most of the people we work with, two to three is a good range to target. Four is if you're really confused, or if you feel like there are four roles which have a lot of um, overlap, right, with each other. Like for example, project and program management. So you can then choose both, and it can go up to four as well. But in most cases, two to three is a good range to target over here. Now, when you are over here, this is something that you will have to do yourself if you are on a free plan. If you are working with us on a paid plan, then we would again support you in shortlisting those roles. But typically, let's say if you are on a free plan and you don't necessarily want our support on shortlisting these, what you can do is just read more about the roles, right? So, for example, talent development manager, this is the role, these are the skill requirements, these are the core responsibilities, this is the average pay across different geographies, right? So you want to be able to read about that role, and then think about which ones make most sense for you at this stage, which one align with your interest, skills, and priorities, which ones are the ones you would rank the highest in terms of current achievability in the job market as well, right? So it's not just about your ambition. It's not just like, oh, I want to become a product manager, or I want to become, let's say, a strategy consultant. Sure, those are great roles, very high paying roles, well respected roles, but do you think you can actually land them based on your prior experience as well? So achievability should always be a key criteria, because again, the job market is very competitive. We're not saying you should play your skills or underplay your strengths, but you have to be practical, right? And if you have zero experience in a certain field, and you don't have any transferable skills for that particular role, chances are you don't want to shortlist it, even though it might have been recommended, right? The way we typically help our clients shortlist is marry their ambition with achievability in the job market. And that's a sort of a subjective, more human centric kind of decision making. You could also, if you like, give this list to ChatGPT or Claude, and ask them to help you make a decision around shortlisting the roles if you don't have human support in the form of industry experts or pivot advisor, right? You will have to give a detailed prompt though to help the Gen AI understand what are the key parameters you're trying to optimize for. But yeah, you could do that. Once you have shortlisted, let's say, two to three roles or maximum up to four roles, then you can move forward to the next exercise. Now, at this stage, what we are doing is trying to understand how to finalize the one primary target role, the role that we really want to pursue, right? And I know people say, I want to pursue two different type of, three different type of roles. Generally, we don't see that working that well in the current job market. So typically, one to two roles is more than enough. You don't want to shortchange yourself. You don't want to set yourself back by diluting your focus across, more than three or four type of roles. So that's why our goal will be, we have shortlisted 3 to 4 roles at most. Now, how do we finalize one primary target role? So the first thing that we do for that is encourage you to set up a session with our industry mentors. These are going to be industry experts across different type of industries, but they will be suggested to you based on the roles that you have shortlisted. Right, in the prior exercise you have shortlisted 3 to 4 roles that we just discussed. So think about which experts align the best for those roles, and they align with the type of personality or experience that you're looking for. So there's a whole host of different options available, because we have 400 plus experts, and you can decide which person you want to speak with. Typically we suggest that you speak with at least 2 and maximum up to 3 people at this stage, because you want to, like, let's say if you've shortlisted 3 4 roles, you want to be able to get feedback from at least one expert on each of those roles that you have shortlisted, right? So sometimes people even schedule more than 3 sessions, but most of the times I would say 3 sessions are sufficient to get feedback from the industry experts on that role. Now, when you're scheduling these sessions, you will have to make a payment for people who have not already purchased the plan, because all of these folks, they are very experienced. They are spending time from their personal life to be able to help others in their career. So there is a modest compensation for their consultation that they would do, and you can make the payment after you select the person by clicking on that profile. And once you have scheduled the session, you will typically see that there are 2 agenda topics for the clarity framework that you want to focus on in this part of the module. So you don't want to suddenly jump into resume review, or asking them about interview preparation and job search strategy. That will happen later in the other modules that we had shown to you over here, right? So these modules are going to talk about resume and job search, skill requirements, growing your network. At this point, you're focused on clarity. So ask them questions related to clarity. Typically, the agenda points we have recommended for the clarity session is getting more clarity on the role that you are considering. So anything that you don't know about the role, let's say from a responsibility perspective, from a future prospects perspective, compensation levels, how much competition is there in the market right now for that role, anything that will help you understand the dynamics of that particular role in current scenarios, in current environment. That is what you want to get feedback on first. And the second type of feedback that we typically encourage is getting feedback on your role fitment or profile fitment, meaning how are you being perceived in the market for that particular role. Is your profile strong? Can you actually land that role? Or is your profile really weak or somewhere in the middle? Right. And if it is, let's say, weak or somewhere in the middle, you really want to understand why is it weak or why is it not so strong? What are the parameters that make the industry experts say that it is not strong? And how can you close that gap if possible? Sometimes you might hear that, if it's a very far off kind of role in terms of achievability, you might get this feedback that, hey, you know what, this is not the best role for you. Don't even think about it. And that's a good thing, right? Because they probably saved you a ton of time where you would have gone into this sort of an exciting new area, but only to find out that your profile is not going to get shortlisted no matter what. But at other times, they might say that, you know what, you have certain experience and skills that can be leveraged for this role. That being said, I feel there are going to be a lot of other stronger candidates. So if you are vying for this role, then you have to improve XYZ points on your profile before you start applying. And that is a much more enriching conversation, because then now you know what's working for you, what's working against you, and how do you bridge the gaps that recruiters and hiring managers might perceive on your profile, right? And again, this is not from a job application perspective. This is more from a clarity perspective. So the goal is to get the information that helps you make the right decision for the best fit roles to target, and having a positioning in mind to know that, okay, if I do go for this role, this is how I will position my profile compared to other hundreds of candidates who are also applying. So that's the goal for these sessions, right? And then once you have done this, The final exercise that we have as part of our explore module, which helps you get clarity, is the finalize roles. So, fairly self explanatory. What we do here is for the roles that you have shortlisted, we showcase certain pros and cons for each of those roles, right? So, I had only shortlisted two roles. Maybe you have done three or four. So, if you have done that, you will see the pros and cons very well structured and outlined over here. The caveat is these pros and cons that are automatically shown to you are typically AI generated. That being said, they do look into your profile that you have shared with us at the time of onboarding. So they will customize the pros and cons a little bit based on whatever you have shared with us so far, right? And so it's important to not just have the AI generated sort of cookie cutter one size fit all pros and cons, because those are applicable to everybody who's considering that role. So while it can be helpful information to say that, for talent development role, I'm contributing to a positive, engaging work environment, and it can be varied role, and all of these things over here, they are good to know so that you can make a more informed decision. But what really helps in pros and cons is adding your own pros and cons at the bottom, because you, based on the uh, research that you have done, understanding about your own background, and then maybe having the sessions with industry experts where they share their feedback with you on what's working for you or what's working against you. Based on all of that in-depth work that you have done, you can now feel confident about knowing what is a pro for you and what is a con. So add those over here. You can click on it, add it. Like a lot of times we have seen the three parameters that people think about deeply when they're thinking about adding these pros and cons. Number one, like I have been saying so far, is achievability. I keep repeating that again and again because that is one of the most important criteria in the current job market. You don't want to go after a role which is going to be super competitive, and you're coming not from a place of strength but a place of weakness. And so it's just going to be frustrating if you keep going after something that has very low probability of achievement. So think about how hard or easy is a role going to be for you to achieve. And we are not saying it's an automatic reject, but at least you can put down, let's say, a hard role to achieve in the con section and a easy role to achieve in the pro section. So that is one parameter to consider. Second is think about your potential in the field, meaning how far do you see yourself going in that particular role. And the further you see yourself going based on your capabilities, but also based on how much that role is valued internally within organizations. Like, for example, sometimes you can be great at a certain type of work or role, but maybe the market does not value that particular skill set or that role that much. So your potential may get hampered after a certain time. So you want to not just think about your capabilities, also think about the roles value to the organization in the market. And so that is the second parameter, which is your potential in the field over the mid to long term. And then the final parameter to think about the pros and cons are the priorities that you have at this stage in your career. So you remember in one of the earlier exercises in introspection, you had jotted down your key priorities at this stage, meaning what is most important to you right now in your career? What are you trying to optimize for? So, based on that, you can also think about which of these roles is going to help me achieve that key priority. So, for example, if your priority right now is job security, think about, okay, I have four different roles or three different roles I'm evaluating. Which of these roles is least likely to be laid off or to, have been disrupted by technology or AI in the near future? So those are the kind of priorities that you already know about yourself, and then you can put down a pro and con depending on how much that role will help you achieve that priority. That's pretty much it. Once you have added those pros and cons, likely at this stage you have at least 90% clarity. Sometimes, like I said earlier, it cannot be 100% because it's subjective. It's like planning your entire life right now. It's impossible to have 100% certainty how your life is going to play out. And the same thing applies to your career as well. So you should always be open to new factors, unanticipated developments that can happen. But at least whatever you have done in this module, which is the explore module, will give you enough confidence that, hey, I've looked at things from different angles, right? We have done introspection, we have done relevant roles exercise where both an algorithm approach and human centered approach have helped us identify the right type of roles to be shortlisted. Then we have done a personality assessment to know how my personality would align with different type of opportunities, what makes me come alive at work. Then you would shortlist roles based on your own judgment, and you'll have sessions with industry mentors, and then ultimately use a pros and cons framework. So essentially, you've used at least five different angles, five different vantage points to evaluate all these opportunities. So you're looking at things not just from just a straight jacketed single perspective, but from various perspectives. And now you should look for patterns. You should identify what are the common patterns that keep emerging for each of the roles in terms of pros and cons. Map them out over here, and ultimately select your target role. Right. That's pretty much it for the clarity framework. There are certain other things. If you're still unclear after this stage, which I would say less than 5% people we work with are, most of the people get the clarity they are looking for, especially if they have had industry expert sessions. But let's say, you have done all of this, you're still trying to choose between two or three different type of roles. There are certain other things that we can recommend to you, but again, we would work with you in a personalized manner on one of the plans that we have. So you can go ahead and check out the plans. By the way, to check out our plans, you will just have to go to our website. I can just show that quickly. So you will go to our website, which is mypivot.work, and over here you can either go to the pricing section, or you can also go on the home page to this section which says select the plan that's right for your goals, and you can think about which one makes more sense. You can click on the learn more option, and once you do that, like let's say it's career change, once you do that, it will show you all the details for that plan and all the other plans as well. Right. So yeah, I think I've covered everything that I was planning to. Just take a quick look to see if there are any specific questions right now. I think we have had some questions that are already answered. I think Onyekachi had a question about someone transitioning to UI UX design. What should I focus on in the next 90 days to improve my profile positioning and become internship or job ready? It's a very good question. I think if you are thinking about UI UX design specifically, you should definitely get feedback from an industry expert who works in UI UX design, because they would be able to recommend the most appropriate path in terms of upskilling, terms of job application positioning, in terms of interview preparation. Right? If you're looking for things to do on your own, you can definitely check out our website, where once you log in, and by the way, you can create a free account, you don't have to always pay, but let's say once you log in the career planner, you will see that we have covered the end-to-end journey, as I explained earlier, from getting clarity to expanding your network and getting more visibility in a crowded job market. And learn is all about how do you navigate certain skill gaps, and how do you showcase your biggest skills in the most impactful manner to your future employer. And prepare is all about job application optimization, meaning your resume and LinkedIn profile, cover letter, portfolio. How do you optimize all of these? How do you prepare for interviews? So all of that is covered over here. And then you have the apply module, which focuses on job search, job recommendations, getting referrals, and then getting an offer finally, where if you need to negotiate it, you can do that as well. So this covers the entire journey. Onyekachi, I think you can check it out, see if this is helpful. And if you think you need feedback from experts, you can click on industry mentors and get feedback from any of the experts working in UI UX design. You can select design over here, and you will see a bunch of experts from that particular field who you can get feedback from. You just need to click on their profile, and once you do that, it will allow you to book a session after choosing what you need to discuss. All right. I believe we have covered everything for today. I hope this was helpful to people who have joined. We have also recorded this session, so we would be sharing the recording with folks in our network and broader communities. If you have joined and found this session helpful, do share this in your network on LinkedIn, so that you're not just restricting this knowledge to yourself, but sharing it with other people. And I always say this, that knowledge grows personally also when you share it, not just when you hoard it or keep it to yourself. So see if this can help others within your network as well. And in case you're looking for any sort of support on your job search or your career transition to a different industry, different level in the organization, do check out Pivot at mypivot.work. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. My profile, I believe, is fairly easy to find. You can just type out Arjun Prakash Pivot. If you type those three words, you will see my profile on the top. You can connect, and then we can discuss your specific goals as well. Okay, that's it for today, folks. Thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great rest